Mr. Peabody.
Here.
Mr. Wirtz.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Iverson.
Here.
Mr. Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Larry. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, may you help our country and the world in these trying times. Help our city council this evening in a deliberation that they're going to be working on for the betterment of our city. We pray that you look over everybody that is being affected by the serious virus that is going around our world this day. We pray that all the first responders, police, fire, EMS, medical workers, all get the service and needs that they need to take care of the people. We pray this in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I'm just going to thank the council for actually this evening coming here in the trying times. We have a meeting tonight. We will not have another council meeting for 22 days after tonight's meeting. Government buildings and elected officials are exempt from any of the orders that are out there that you've heard about. We need to take care of the business of the city for the people, and that's what we're doing here this evening. If there's something else out there, we'll be discussing further this evening. I have some other things I'll mention at the end of the meeting tonight, but I just want to thank the council for being here this evening. We have 6 council members, and we needed you all here this evening, so we had a quorum. First, we have approved the agenda for this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Second.
Any further? That was Mr. Iverson and Mr. Peabody. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. There's no public comment this evening. Oh,
I just want to make one brief one.
Mr.
There's a
Iverson,
lady,
you just
there's a
look-
lady at 955 Ransom Street by the name of Kat Griffith. She is working on organizing like an ad hoc community group to help people who have to be sheltered in place and stay out of public. So she's at 955 Ransom Street. So if someone want to contact me or if they know her name or number, contact her and see what you can do to help.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Iverson. Next, we have consent calendar. Unless the mayor, council, or staff asks that one or more of the items be pulled, the list may be approved with a single vote. We have operator license for the 2019-2020 licensing period. Savannah Becker, Holiday Food and Sport. Staff recommends approval of all license. Any questions or discussion on this item? Entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the the consent calendar, the operator license for 2019-2020, pending proper payment of fees.
Thank you, Doug. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Raleigh. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have a few action items this evening. The first one's going to be an update project financing plan for MSA. Dave Rasmussen from MSA will present an updated project financing plan for Vermont Parkway project, as well as proposed stewardship gift closed grant application. We have Dave with us this evening. He is via telephone conference call here. Dave, you can hear us?
I can hear you just fine. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yep. We can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave. First out, everybody should have a handout that's on your desk from MSA, right, Lori?
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
And thank you again for allowing me to call into this meeting. I wish I could have been there, but circumstances are what they are, and we've got to abide by that. So. First, I'll be going through the financing plan, which is the spreadsheet that I put together for the 2 projects. And just as a little bit of background, if you recall, I met with the council back in October of last year, and the council directed MSA to come up with some funding scenarios for different projects. There was about five street projects, the senior center, there was the old building downtown. I can't remember what that was called. Anyway, so we started working on that, and one of the first things that we were looking at is to look and see which projects would be qualified for the Community Development Block Grant Program for public facilities, which is an annual competition. And so we were looking at that project, and I guess maybe even prior to that, some of the other funding sources that we're looking at for street utility projects are the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program and the Clean Water Fund. So we did submit ITAs and PERFs. ITAs are intents to apply, and PERFs are the priority evaluation ranking form for those five street projects that involve utility reconstruction as well. We submitted those ITAs and PERFs back October 31st to the DNR. Again, that just gets you on the priority list. If you're not on the list, you can't apply for loans through that program. So those lists came out recently. You're on the list, so you're eligible to apply for loans for those programs. The next program that we're looking at is for these street projects. And what we did is we talked with the Department of Administration, and we boiled down those 5 street projects to 2 street projects that would possibly qualify for CDBG funds based on them being neighborhood projects. And those projects were Russell Drive and Vermont and Parkway Terrace. We then conducted a survey, income survey for those two neighborhoods. The Russell Drive project did not qualify because there was kind of a unique situation there with the senior living there. Seniors over 62 automatically qualify as being low to moderate income. And what we're doing with the CDBG program is we're trying to benefit low to moderate income households. So either communities or the neighborhood have to be at least 51% LMI. We have kind of a unique situation, kind of a one-of-a-kind situation on Russell Drive, whereby we had the senior living facility there, the senior apartments, the Russell Manor. I believe there's 113 apartments, about 126 residents, but there was 4 apartments that had occupants or residents that were under 62 years of age. So we had to survey those individual households, and unfortunately, if any one of those were over income, then the whole facility would not qualify. And as such, we had one apartment where the residents were over income. So consequently, we had to take Russell Drive off the table. Originally, we were looking at putting, we had a $3 million project with the 2 projects. Russell Drive was estimated at about $800,000. The Vermont Parkway project was estimated at $2.2 million. And we were looking at that point in time to look at putting most of the funds, the block grant, which we're applying for $1 million, and the CDBG closed, which is about $525,000. We were going to put the CDBG closed towards the Russell Drive project. Because that did not qualify as being eligible for CDBG, we can't use the CDBG close for that either. So again, take the Russell Street project off, or the Russell Drive project off, which gets us down to the Vermont and Parkway project. So looking at this financing plan, we're going to apply for a community development block grant, public facilities grant for $1 million. Originally that application was due on May 15th or 14th, but now with everything that's going on, they've extended that deadline till June 25th. But we intend to probably get your application in by the May 14th deadline. So that's a grant program. Consequently, because of the extension, typically we would hear the end of July. Now we might hear the end of August as to whether or not we got those grants. So we're looking at financing this $2.2 million project with, we're hoping, $1 million of CDBG. The other programs that are available, as I said, we put all of these street projects in for the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program and the Clean Water Fund Loan Program. Okay, those are programs for utility replacement work. Safe Drinking Water deals with your water system. Clean Water Fund deals with your sanitary sewer system. These are loans through the DNR. They are subsidized loans. Currently, the interest rate for the city of Ripon would be about 1.54% for both of those loans. The nice thing about the Clean Water Fund, over the last 3 years, everybody that applied for loan also got principal forgiveness, which is a grant. Okay, so we can't count on that, but that's been the trend for the last 3 years on the Clean Water Fund side. The Safe Drinking Water, not so much. And so looking at this financing program, we're looking at $500,000 loans to the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program, $490,000 through the Clean Water Fund Loan Program, and then potentially $210,000 of grant through the Clean Water Fund principal forgiveness. So then just kind of dropping down, again, looking at some of those notes there. The Safe Drinking Water Loan Program, again, is a low-interest loan program, 1.54% interest, the same with the Clean Water Fund. Again, there has been some potential principal forgiveness in the past. We can't really count on that. We've had projects that have been completed, excuse me, and then the community finds out that they were awarded principal forgiveness. So that was kind of a nice bonus. So just looking at the Vermont Parkway project, the neat thing about that project is it's within a half mile of your TIF district number 9. Okay, we measured it. The back of those, I think the west side of the Parkway Terrace, the homes along Parkway Terrace are 1.5 mile from TIF district number 9. We checked your project plan for TIF number 9. It's already in your project plan that you can do projects within 1.5 mile of the TIF district. So we don't have to do anything as far as amendments. So, excuse me, just kind of looking at that, these two loans, if we looked at, a potential $1.2 million loan through the Clean Water Fund program at the interest rate of 1.54%, excuse me, your annual debt service is going to be about $130,397 over a 10-year period. You have, your TIF district is currently doesn't have any debt, okay? It's currently producing about 117,000. That's based on 2018 increments. So it's a little higher now because the value of your TIF district's going up. So really, you're going to be able to cover the debt service on the state drinking water loan and the Clean Water Fund loan using revenues from tax increments from TIF number 9. So again, if we're successful in getting the grant, we know we can get the loans. We don't know whether or not we would get the principal forgiveness, but for sure we can get those loans. And so basically we can fund the Vermont Parkway project without any funds coming out of the city, because tax increment financing, the TIF district will pay for the debt service on those. If that's assuming that the values stay the same right now, excuse me, TIF number 9 has about $5 million of value. And so, so again, if that stays the same, which hopefully it does over time, you should be able to pay your debt service with the tax increment that's being generated from that. If you need additional time, TIF number 9 is eligible for 2 different extensions, 2 3-year extensions. There's a standard deduction, or a standard, talking about taxes now. There's a standard extension, and then there's also a tech college extension, and both of those are 3 years. And if you need those, you can get those extensions filed, and you should be able to, again, pay for all of the debt service on that with the TIF district so that there's no money from the city going towards that project. So that's the question on, or that's the financing plan for Vermont Parkway. Are there any questions on that?
Dave, it's just Mayor Will. So is there anything else the city needs to do now for that project and plan moving forward?
We have scheduled the public hearing for the CDBG application at your April 14th meeting. And so then we will submit the application for the CDBG funds. And we'll hope that they have enough funds to fund the city of Ripon. Again, we'll find out in July, August of this year.
Any questions from council for Dave on the Vermont Parkway? No, Lori, is there anything else? Okay, Dave, I guess we're good on that.
Okay. Then the next project that we're looking at is that, again, MSA, looked at all of these different sources of funds that you have. We come up with some ideas. The senior center and trailhead facility was kind of an idea that came up, and we just kind of, gave some input, some ideas, put some ideas together to present to the council tonight. Again, we were going to use the CDBG closed money for the Russell Drive project because we couldn't find any other funds to use for that. But being that Russell Drive doesn't qualify, and the CDBG closed money has to go for a CDBG eligible project. So what we're looking at is a senior, what MSA is proposing is a senior center trailhead facility in Murray Park that would use the gift money that you've received, which is $500,000. The CDBG close, which you have already, that's $525,000. And again, that would be, we dedicate that to the senior center. The senior center qualifies because it's an LMI benefit based on limited clientele. It serves persons, residents that are seniors 62 and older, okay? Now, does that mean that somebody under 62 can use the facility? Yes, not a problem. But senior centers, homeless shelters, um, different, they have what they call limited clientele that meets the LMI, the low moderate income benefit from HUD's standpoint. So the $525,000 of CDBG closed money would be dedicated strictly for the senior center of this combined facility. And we know that we can combine these facilities, because we've done this before with the block grant program and that, where we've had combined facilities. So that shouldn't be a problem in combining this facility. I did provide council members of the city with a project that we were looking at in the town of Ripon, and I just wanted to kind of show you what we maybe come up with. That facility there, that's a trailhead facility and kind of a gathering space. It's not so much a senior center, but I guess I wanted to show you folks this to kind of give you an idea of what possibly could happen, or what we could possibly do with a combined facility in that. So our idea would be is a combined facility that would then use these different funding sources, such as your gift money, such as the CDBG close. We would then apply for stewardship funding to the Wisconsin Stewardship Fund for the Trailhead facility. So that's another grant application that would have to go in, and we're figuring maybe applying for $500,000 of that, because that's a 50-50 match. So we've got the gift money that would go towards the Trailhead facility, the stewardship $500,000. The facility that the town of Ripon has, that facility cost about $1.7 million, and there was some contingencies in there. The town of Ripon hasn't implemented that yet, but we put those estimates together for them. That includes the building and so forth. We also had in that budget, we had $160,000 for the private septic and well system, which, Murray Park, you've got water and sewer there, so that shouldn't be a problem. So just to give you an idea, that facility that, gave you those renderings is estimated about $1.7 million. Now, our intention, should you want to go ahead with this project, is sit down with our architect and design a facility and a budget, a cost estimate based on what you folks want. I just wanted to show you some examples of, kind of a combined facility type of thing that conceivably could happen in the city. So again, that stewardship application is due in May 1st. I think you've just updated your outdoor recreation plan to include a facility there. We would also look at working with the city on tying in some of the trails around the city to tie into this facility to make it truly a trailhead facility in that. So that's another idea that we had, again, taking what you gave us back in October and kind of mulling it around. This is one of the ideas that MSA came up with, and using the gift money, the CDBG close, looking at applying for stewardship funds. There is, depending on what this final cost would be, again, this facility is about $1.7 million. We'd like to design something for you that, based on what you want for your senior center and trailhead facility in Murray Park. So Any questions on that financing plan?
Dave, just to help fill in a little bit there, this was kind of a result of the Russell Drive being pulled in a prior project, and then the current facility they were looking at Murray Park not happening, coming in over budget. You started looking at this, and the key was when pulling Russell Drive out, you needed to find something else to do with the money. At the end of your spreadsheet,
Yeah.
at the end of your spreadsheet, you got a total of 2 million, and there's 475 at the end that you didn't mention, and that's actually our, if we get the street project, the Vermont Parkway Terrace, that would be a $2.2 million project we would do next year, and we wouldn't be spending the 475 as we borrow for every year to do streets. That's where that other money comes from in this $2 million project. You mentioned the renderings the council has this evening is 1.7 with 160,000 for a well and a septic. So if you took that off of there, you're at about 1.57.
Right.
And so they're not designing anything tonight, they're not building anything tonight, but we don't have another meeting for 22 days after this, and you mentioned the application for the stewardship is May 1st?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, and as part of that stewardship application, it would be working with the city to design, get pretty much some drawings and a cost estimate. Drawings like we have for the Welcome Center and some cost estimates for that, so that, again, it's going to be based on what you folks want the facility. And we can kind of, again, look at it and kind of have kind of an idea of a budget in mind and so forth.
So if we get the Vermont Parkway Street, we won't know that now a little bit later because of the situation we're in, and they pushed that deadline back a month. Given that this is without the well and the septic, we're a little over 1.5 million. If we won't get the stewardship grant, we're still, with our gift, our clothes, and our road money, it's still a viable project in my eyes because we got $1.5 million. Would you agree with that or not?
Right. I
So,
would agree with that. And the thing about the CDBG close money is that has to be allocated for an eligible activity by January 31st of next year.
okay,
Okay? So we can, submit the application if the council decides to go this direction. We can submit the application in May. We can look at the, hopefully, I think in July or August, I think the awards are made on the stewardship. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to be tough to get stewardship, but we don't know until we apply. And, so then we can look at this being a, maybe, spring of next year and look at, again, coming up with an estimated cost, and look at some other sources. But I don't think that there's any deadlines as far as the gift is concerned. The only deadline that we'd be looking at for the senior center is making sure that we allocate those funds by January 1st of next year. And then you would have 2 years to actually use it for whatever source of funds that you have,
good.
or whatever uses you would have, CDBG eligible activity.
Right. Okay, questions from council? So we're, Howie?
Not so much a question, but the gift you have listed as 500,000, in the stipulation of that gift, a portion of that was to be set aside for maintenance, future maintenance of that building. So that's something we would have to decide how much of that we wish to take out to put aside for that. So that will make a bit of adjustment on the final totals.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and it's growing, I think, Lori. We got, I don't know, do you know what it is right now? Is it, okay. Yeah, and so maintenance and/or contingency when the project is built. Did you have contingency in that project you're talking about now, Dave, the 1.7 for ARPN?
Yeah, I believe there was contingency in that as well.
10%, 15% or something, or?
Probably that. You know, the budget that we put together also included some furnishings, appliances, another about 130,000 in contingency. So probably about 10% of the construction.
Okay. And once we know a building and a size and a cost, that'll kind of help answer Mr. Hanson's question on, you're the expert, not me, but you could tell us, because we have to maintain this perpetually, so it's in our park, it's our building, the City of Ripon Senior Center. If you tell us we need 20,000 or 30 or 40 or 50 to maintain it for 100 years, you can do that once you have a size and a building and a design and a cost?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay? Just be mindful of that moving forward. Good, Howie?
That 1.7 million also included architectural fees and so forth. So it's a 3,550 feet of enclosed space there,
Square feet.
what you're looking at. Square feet, yeah.
Okay. And this evening, what we're really looking for is a council directive to apply for the stewardship grant. We're not designing or building anything right now. If the stewardship happens or doesn't happen, what's the worst case for the city? Nothing?
Well, yeah, there'd be $500,000 less, you know, and then we'd be looking at, you know, having to scale back maybe part of the project.
Doing a
If you still wanted to go for it, you know, for that.
doing a $1.4 million project instead of a $2 million project, if we wouldn't get the stewardship.
Correct.
Okay. How
And
is,
again, these are all
Good.
estimates at this point in time, and the goal would be to, you know, if you're interested in applying for the stewardship funds for this purpose, you know, we would sit down and, you know, refine what you want. We'd have some drawings and so forth, because that would be part of the application. And then we would put a cost estimate together. So, you know, it's just kind of to give you an idea again, you know, what it could look like. I mean, it's not going to be this building. I mean, because we want your input on that. And you know, that building, you know, costs about 1.7 million.
okay. Mr. Wirch?
When you use the word project, is that based on a building, on a site, on a lot? What is a project considered when you're gonna apply for a CDBG for stewardship, things like this? What is considered the
Definition of the
realm, if you
project,
will, of project site?
the definition of the project that we're talking about for our program here, Dave, I guess.
That would be a, you know, construction of a combined senior center and trailhead facility on a site owned by the city already. It would include, you know, again, looking at, you know, parking lots and so forth, you know, refurbishing maybe the parking lot there already. Again, we'd have to get involved with it a little bit more, you know, to really determine what those costs are going to be. But it would be basically a kind of a turnkey operation where, you know, here's your facility. We go through the process, get the grant, Wisconsin Stewardship Fund. Again, the CDBG close is, you know, there's not a problem. We do have to apply for those funds, but they award those funds because it's already your funds. It just has to go through a CDBG eligible activity, which a senior center is.
So
So
senior,
we're looking at a combined facility on your lot. And again, you know, hoping that we get $500,000 from Wisconsin Stewardship.
Mr. Wirch?
The point is that if it's the park, is there a way to incorporate not only that building, because again, we're talking multi-use, not only senior center, but a multi-use building. Is there a way to incorporate that for Little League, for baseball, for the park itself? And/or does it have to all be one building? I guess, can we do something down below for 100,000, remodeling that because it's part of a project to enhance Murray Park versus a senior center trailhead facility / Murray Park upgrades?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Mr. Wirtz, and I think that would be the intent moving forward. And Dave, as Jim's kind of asking, so this would be we have to call it a senior center, and we have to call it a trailhead facility. But it doesn't mean that this building will be utilized year-round. Winter, summer, it can be rented out. As you mentioned earlier, it's not just seniors that use it. It could be rented out for a birthday party or something. Correct?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the CDBG closed is for the senior center portion of it. I don't know what kind of programs seniors have. If they have it every day, Meals on Wheels, or not Meals on Wheels, but, if they would serve meals there. I don't know what your current senior center, I don't know the size of that, nor do I know what kind of programming that they have there. But again, the CDBG close would have to go for the senior center part of it. You could split it up, I guess, into other things. I mean, again, that's the intent of working with the Parks and Rec and the Public Works Department to really kind of define this. Again, I just wanted to give you this welcome center thing to kind of, give you an idea of, what could be done.
Dave, how big does this have to be for you to send some drawings along for this stewardship application in May? I mean, if for some reason we just wanted you to use this stuff from Ripon that you have here and still work on ours, is that something you can do or not?
Well, what we could do is, we can, we'd like to get it, maybe some ideas. Maybe there's some things, and maybe this drawing can be enhanced or added to, that we could submit as part of the application. Now, it doesn't mean that that's exactly what it would have to be. If you get funded, we could tweak it a little bit more, but this would be kind of when we submit the stewardship application, we'd be looking at this is kind of the concept and the cost estimate that we're thinking of.
The big reason I asked is, with the situation we're in our world right now and in country, we have a meeting in 22 days, a city council meeting again, and I'm not too sure about our committee meetings, if they're going to be meeting at all in the near future. Okay. And because of the timeline here and this having to be applied for, is it something that we can, do the minimum we have to so you can get this thing out and applied for? And if we had to use this, could we use it and modify it later, I guess was my big question.
Well, what we could do, Mayor, is, based on, our discussions tonight, we could, work up a drawing, work up an estimate, give it to you folks for a little input, and, based on what we've done in the past as far as senior centers and what needs to be in a senior center, what needs to be in a trailhead facility.
Okay.
We can come up with an idea and then just present it to you, tweak it, of course, put Ripon's name on here. I don't think they, or Bluff County Park, I don't think, we better not, but we can come up with some, ideas.
Good.
And they might not be, the renderings that we have here, but to start with, but maybe just, a floor plan and possibly some things that, some, drawings and stuff. What's your impression of this here? Is this something that, is what you'd like to see? Something similar to this, or?
Well, I think it looks beautiful. I mean, council, you guys like what it looks like? I mean, he's just giving you an example of the cost and what a building is, and it's pretty big. It's 3,500 square feet. Mr. Schrader?
It's important to point out that the stewardship grant application must tie in the trails, you know, and all of those things. That's the linchpin in the DNR's stewardship fund. That's what,
Absolutely correct.
when we talked with MSA and all of those things. The senior center, the gift, the community development block grant funds, or the closed money,
yep.
all of those things. It's important also to remember that when we did have discussions regarding this, Howard, chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, and myself, the chair of the Public Works Committee, we were involved in those conversations. And if we look at those those city dollars, that 475 that we're using, we understand that also some of that money may be needed to make improvements to the current pavilion or the current facility that is utilized by baseball teams for concessions, those type of things. Perhaps some shade over the bleachers. There are a number of things that were talked about in order to facilitate, you know, those needs in our community also. So when we said this is maybe a part of a bigger project, when Public Works said perhaps maybe this needs to be, you know, the pavilion or the needs of the baseball groups needed to be part of a bigger project, this very well may fit that bill.
Good point, Mr. Schrader.
That makes sense. Howie, please, I don't mean to
That's
speak for
exactly
you,
what
but-
we discussed when we spoke with Dan and that, and we're trying to get, as the mayor always says, the most bang for our buck that we can, and this is something that should turn around and help all groups that have been in consideration for the gift money and that from the very beginning, so Public Works and Park and Rec will continue to work together on this and keep it moving forward.
Any other questions, discussion? Dave, I think everybody is pretty content with what you shared with us so far. Lud, anything?
Just to highlight that going forward, when you start these renderings, include the Lloyd and Grace Mitchell
Name.
name into the renderings, because that's certainly part of it.
It's key.
And that's key, being the senior center part of it, that we know has to be there, and then obviously the words trailhead facility need to be in it. So it's gonna be a mouthful, but those things need to be in it for identity purposes. Back to Mr. Wirch's question, which I think was qualified very nicely by Mr. Schrader, other things can evolve around that base, whether we would situate it in such a way that it could be utilized for the Little League, bathroom facilities, or the concession stands, or the soda machines, or whatever might be available as part of the trailhead. Certainly lend itself nicely to a whole use of that park facility year-round. And that could include Little League, and I think Mr. Schrader pointed out the idea that then some of the funds that we have on the table here can be diverted to make improvements to the current pavilion, where they sell concessions down in Murray Park, and the shade portion and other ideas are great. So I think this is a moving thing. The base that the council needs to understand, it has to have Grace Lloyd Mitchell, and it has to have Senior Center, and it has to have Trailhead. That's the way we're moving the project forward, so that we have the best opportunity to maximize the monies that are out there. So it can't be a Little League facility, I guess, is at the outset, but it certainly could lend itself down the road to that.
Mr. Hanson?
Yeah, as Lud was just saying, the mentioning of these names in this all give points towards these stewardship grants and that aspect. As someone who's worked with the Knowles Nelson stewardship grants and that in the past, that is very important, to get all those little extra points that you can to get the most out of the grants that are available.
Just to touch on what Al and Howie and Lud just said, is trails, and Al mentioned connecting. We actually had the conversation with Al and Howie, your representatives on your committees there with Dave the other week before we brought this to the council. To make sure they supported it before we move forward with it. And when you talk about connecting, we have the Mascoutin Valley Trail, just a hop, skip, and a little jump to the east, and the Northwestern Trail to the west here. And Howie's on another committee, and they're gonna be connecting in Green Lake to Ripon here shortly. So there's a little bit of a connection from each side. Now you're talking a major loop from the Fox River up in Berlin, down around through Ripon over to Green Lake. And this would be a facility right smack in the middle of that trail, right in Ripon on the north end in the park, with bathrooms facility. That's what trailhead facility, when you hear them talking about that and mentioning about scoring, and that's what Dave said, all of these things help, and we tried to do this stuff ourselves before without all these tools in the toolbox. MSA is here now to help with all this, and just a simple thing is how you word something helps with scoring when you're going out to try to get these funds. So as Lud and Al just mentioned, there's bigger potential with this building once it's situated there. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Guys? Anybody else on this side? Okay, Dave, anything else that we need from you? Otherwise, we'll be looking for a motion to move forward so you can get this work done and work on stewardship application. And we would definitely be talking about this at our next council meeting on where you are and what's happening from now till then and before you go out for the grant.
Right.
If they want to move forward this evening. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, just based on, you know, what you folks decide tonight, I mean, we can get start working on some drawings and so forth. Again, the CDBG public facilities, we've got the public hearing that's required for that application submission. We've got that coming to City Council in April. We probably will have the application pretty well complete at that time, so that all of the resolutions for the submission of the application and that can take place in April. If not, you know, we can delay to May now that there's been a extension of the time period, but we'd like to keep that, try to keep as much as possible to that timeline that we had originally for the CDBG public facilities as well.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we
And
can.
again, I just want to thank everybody, you know, again, for allowing me to call in. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Dave. We needed you, and we had to have this meeting because of the timeline and the situation we're in, so thank you. I'm just going to check if there's nothing else. We'll actually let you go, Dave. Any other questions for Dave before we let him go? Okay, Dave, we'll let you go, and Lori will, oh, hang on. Oh,
It's not for Dave. I mean,
oh, okay. Okay, Dave, we'll let you
Thanks,
go,
Jim.
and Lori will let you know tomorrow what happens.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave. Bye-bye.
You folks have a great evening.
You too. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Yep, bye.
Mr. Schrader?
do we need two motions?
I would think so.
One for authorizing MSA to apply for the Community Development Block Grant Public Facilities Fund for the street project, and then for a motion to authorize MSA to apply for the $500,000 stewardship funds for the senior center / trailhead facility.
Yeah,
Separate.
Separate them.
Yep.
I think that's a good idea. I'm looking at the task order that's on your desk. Is that encompassed in here, Lori?
Oh,
The MSA task order?
this is,
They're all, the ones you just mentioned are in. Are we taking this piece by piece, or do we have to authorize all of this?
the task order is for all of the funding, which includes all of the grants and the TIF
Okay,
funding.
so moving forward, the task funding, which spells out all of those that you've named, plus others, TIF. It has some TIF component, which obviously is important if we're moving forward. We have the closed application called out, and
One motion moving the task
one
order
motion
forward.
moving all this forward, I think will do it, Al.
Good question.
Yep.
And to clarify.
Yep, no, good question. I think that's why it's on our desk, correct, Lori?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Wirch?
At that point, then, you may agree with the Vermont Parkway, but not the senior center trailhead facility, and we'd have to vote no if you don't believe in one or the other, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think we can do it that way, and if it fails, then we can parse it out.
Agree.
And move this forward, if we get affirmative vote, it all moves forward. If not, you can parse it out on the second motion.
Good, Jim?
Yeah.
Mr. Schrader?
Now, neither of these projects are a done deal, correct?
Correct.
Okay, this is not the way it's gonna happen.
Right.
We're just
Getting the road-
perhaps walking down a path to get to somewhere,
Yes.
but trying to leverage $1.5 million of grant funds to help us get there.
That's the motion, and you can add that to the motion. You can indicate the motion is to move forward, to authorize MSA, and use Al's words, and, so I think he said it right, to leverage grant money to put together these projects that have been started by MSA and bring them forward in a position where the grants are perhaps available to the city. And without that motion, we have no chance of getting the grants.
And we're talking a total, for everybody listening, $4.2 million with what we just discussed in the last 40 minutes, potential. And it's be an amazing day for the city of
3.8,
Ripon.
we already have the 400,000 from the Mitchells.
Okay, well, I just mean total cost of the project.
Right.
I was gonna
You
say,
know,
we're not getting 4.2, Mayor.
No, projects in Ripon, roads and the building, you're talking $4.2 million worth of projects and infrastructure in the city of Ripon. Any other questions, discussion? Mr. Iverson?
That would be over, what, 2021, 2022?
Well, if we get the road project, that'll be next year in
That'd be
'21.
2021.
The other one can happen in '21 too. If everything lines up and everything works, they can both be next year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion.
Who got Lud's motion?
I think a lot of it was
I think Al did, didn't
Andy,
he?
you got it?
Ann, are you okay with the motion so far?
Okay, we'll try it
Make a
again.
formal motion, please.
Pardon me?
Make a formal motion, please. Sorry, but,
I'm just trying to figure out the language.
okay, thank you.
Okay. I would move that the city authorizes MSA to apply for a $1 million community development,
You got that recorded.
apply for community development block grant funds, safe drinking water loan funds, clean water loan funds, and possible loan forgiveness funds for the Vermont Street Parkway Street project, and authorize MSA to complete a grant application for $500,000 for the stewardship fund for the senior center trailhead facility,
And
with
the
the understanding,
and the CDBG closed monies.
yeah, and the CDBG close money,
Very good.
with the understanding that these are grant applications only. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, it is.
Did you get that, Ann?
Yes, she did.
Did we want to include Lloyd and Grace Mitchell in that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, that it moves forward with the Lloyd and Grace Mitchell name, senior center, together with the trailhead facility,
I think we-
somewhere in the titling of all this. So those need to be caveats in the motion.
Good, Al?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
How we second that? Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, question?
Yeah, I did, actually. What would be the next steps then to this? Because we're authorizing, submitting a grant for something that might happen. For those listening, millions at home, we're basically saying we've now committed and we want to apply for a senior center trailhead facility. But again, there's gonna be a lot of moving parts to what you said, Al. I guarantee tomorrow there'll be people knocking on my door asking about this and what we're doing and why we did this without public input towards the facility.
And again, the words are in the motion.
Correct, but.
Grant,
So it's out there.
for grant purposes only.
Correct.
So he said it just like that. So that's very important that that be highlighted, that this does not commit the Common Council to using the Lloyd and Grace Mitchell funds for these purposes. It simply allows MSA to use it as part of the grant application. That does not seal the deal that these dollars will be spent. A grant application only. And again, given the limited time we're going to have available because of the current environment we live in, it's important that that be established, but it's also important that Mr. Wirch's point is established. It does not commit the city to going forward.
There'll be many future discussions, many more opportunities for public
Absolutely.
input.
We've heard to
at the
debate
park
whether or not
here.
that's the best use of our resources, correct. But if the grant isn't initiated, the process this evening, you have missed potentially an opportunity. That's all that the motion made by Mr. Schrader.
If we don't get the grant and we do subsequently get the street funding, then we'll be talking about a $1.4 million project instead of a $2 million project. But this is, as Lud just mentioned, all we're doing tonight is giving us the green light to move forward to apply for that stewardship funding and the timeline of that and what we have to do by May 1st. Good, Jim?
Yep, could be $1 million project, could be
Just to
anything
give-
under that amount.
Right.
Just to give Mr. Wirch a little information, really what it is we're turning around and letting the stewardship committee know that, because it's a matching grant, that yes, we do have the money to match that grant, which gives us extra points. So it's not committing. I mean, we can turn that down if we got the stewardship at any time and we decide, no, we don't want to go through this project, we can deny it. We're not locked in.
Just using, yeah.
So,
We get the money, we don't want to turn it down.
no, but you know what I'm saying, if extenuating circumstances come up that
Absolutely.
We can, right, I
we
understand.
have that, we're not locked in, so all it is doing, turn around and letting them know that we do have the matching funds money
Right.
to apply for with the stewardship grant.
Yep.
I think it's important we also remember that there's gonna be a lot of new faces
Correct.
Right.
in this room
Good
in the
point,
very near future.
good point.
Essentially. Okay. Anything else? We started a motion of everybody that's in favor.
Let's go with roll call.
Okay. Lori?
It's okay. Mr. Schrader.
Aye.
Mr. Peabody.
Aye.
Mr. Wirch.
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
Mr. Iverson.
Yes.
Mr. Split.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Lori. You got that, Ann? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, council. Okay, moving on, our second action this evening is going to be a proclamation regarding emergency declaration for COVID-19. Staff note, in the event the COVID-19 pandemic begins to escalate even more, the emergency declaration allows the city to take actions that would normally otherwise require council approval. This allows city staff to respond quicker than would normally be possible. Staff recommends approval. Lud, do you want me to read this or not?
Sure, go ahead and read it.
I'm going to read the proclamation first. Proclamation regarding emergency declaration for COVID-19. Whereas the International Health Regulations Emergency Committee of the World Health Organization, WHO, has declared the current outbreak of COVID-19 as a worldwide pandemic. And whereas public health officials recommended implementation of heightened hygiene, cleaning, and social distancing measures with the potential to suspend or alter events, meetings, or certain operations. And whereas under Municipal Code Section 2.16, the office of the mayor may declare an emergency with ratification by the Common Council. And whereas the city would like to acknowledge that it shall have the broadcast authority and greatest discretion consistent with state and federal law respect to emergency response and operation for COVID-19. And whereas the office of the city administrator, treasurer, shall have operational authority with the assistance of Police Chief, to take any necessary precautions or actions related to the city operation for the welfare and organization of the community, for the continuity of government. And whereas this proclamation shall be subject to ratification by the Common Council as soon as practical. I witness thereof, I, Gary A. Will, Mayor of the City of Ripon, have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Ripon to be applied this 18th day of March 2020. It was certified on the 18th by your clerk, Ann Schomer.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Al and second by Raleigh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I'm just going to add, just for people, I mean, I did have a couple calls, and if you guys get calls, be given the situation that we have before us in our city and county and state and country, your city administrator actually is the contact and emergency management person for the city of Ripon. Some people, I don't want to say confused, but our form of government in Ripon here is a weak side mayor position, which is what I have. In other cities have a mayor, small size cities like ours. So a mayor in another city can be equivalent to our city administrator in this city. However, myself as a mayor with our city attorney and police chief have been in numerous conversations over the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue to work together moving forward in any way we can through this difficult situation. Good, Lori?
Good.
Okay, item number 3 is going to be COVID-19 employment policy. The purpose of the policy is to provide guidance to department heads and employees for responding to the rapidly evolving COVID-19 public health emergency. Staff recommends approval. It was in your packet that was delivered to your house. Is there any questions or discussion on this? Anything at all?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Raleigh, second by John. Questions? Jim?
Couple clarifications. It does mention every 2 weeks or more frequently to be reviewed by the Common Council. Should that say something about the next scheduled meeting? Because obviously, if we're not meeting for 22 days, that's more than the 14 days required by this act.
I think that is correct. Yes, let's make that alteration.
Well, if something changes and we need to change and modify it,
But if it says every 2
Or
weeks,
more
the Common
frequently.
Council.
Yeah,
Or more free, it should say, why don't we say monthly?
monthly.
That's an honest statement rather than weekly, or 2 weeks. Let's include language that, to review, so it'll be on every agenda, this policy, until COVID-19 is not an issue.
I'm okay with that. The other one I noticed in 414, it mentions the city administrator posting information on Facebook. Should that also include the City of Ripon website for those of us that don't do Facebook?
Yep.
Do that.
Include that and/or, I would say and.
And.
'cause Not,
And.
yeah, not everybody's on Facebook.
Yep.
Just want to try to get the information out to everybody.
Doug?
Whatever wording the governor uses tomorrow, will that affect this policy?
It may.
And so we would have to modify the policy, or what?
We may.
We may.
Okay?
It's a fluid document, and it may change whenever it needs to, and that's kind of what I was mentioning, what Jim just mentioned, is the city attorney, I think, and city administrator are looking at ways that we can communicate. The government has lifted some restrictions, as we got our clerk on the phone this evening, we had Dave on the phone. If there's something that comes up between now and the next meeting that we need to convene you, maybe not necessarily here, however, I mentioned earlier, is elected officials in government buildings are exempt, we may need to reach out to you via phone or conference call or something just to modify and change
With a
something.
properly public notice to
Plug.
the press with complying with the Attorney General's opinion associated, released March 20th concerning open meetings. So we would make sure we comply with all requirements, but it may open up an opportunity to use some type of Zoom, Skype, web, GoToMeeting format to get everybody online with proper notice to the press. and would allow public access to that meeting.
So I have another question, Gary. Lori, I know Desiree Bongers at the library had some concerns on this policy based on how they do their employees. Can we work that out with her?
Yeah, this was actually drafted prior to the new emergency FMLA changes, so that this will change, because we have to incorporate that.
That was
into here.
anticipated in the language. It does reference the FMLA policy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and federal and state law supersedes. We're going to follow the directives of the federal and the state government.
Okay.
Al?
Library employees are city employees, correct? So what our city employees do, our library employees do. There's not two sets of rules.
Library is a little
It's
different.
That is an unclear question. The city designates funds for the library board. The library board decides how to spend those funds. Historically, those employees have followed the rules of the city in most cases, correct, Lori?
Correct.
Distinction could be made as to how the library board wants to treat that issue, but that would create a problem going forward, because historically, we have treated them equally. So it's a little tricky. We designate funds. The city of Ripon gives the library board funds. That's why the library board exists. Historically, they've elected to have their employees treated along with the city as similar benefits, with the exception of the library director. The library director can be distinguished in that historical past, okay? So it's it is a hybrid, there is no question. It's a hybrid. So technically, they work for the library board.
What about we have a bargaining unit. How does this apply? And does our bargaining unit need to accept this also?
Again, that relates to the question of state and federal rules and regulations, and the fact that we are acting in an emergency situation. So there is that issue, absolutely. And if they're gonna raise issue that in any way, shape, or form we're violating their union contract, they have to raise that. But that's not the intent. That's not the intent of the document.
Okay.
Good question.
It's to augment, not to take away. But the emergency powers is the clarification, and the chief and I have had some discussion regarding that, whether he'd have powers to tell his officers they must be on the job because of an emergency situation. That is something that may take union grievance issues.
Good, Al?
Yes.
Jim?
Yeah, and I know I mentioned FMLA, but it also didn't mention the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which also is specific language in it for governmental employees. So we should incorporate that into
Yes.
this document
Yes.
as well.
Because that just came out.
I mean, it
right,
just
Lori?
came out, yeah.
That
So I
just
mean,
came
it's
out,
been in
so
the last days.
We want that amendment. We want that amendment for certain.
The key is for myself, I'm not speaking for anybody else here, but I want to make sure our employees are treated well by this. Nobody's getting ahead, nobody's falling behind. I'd like our employees to stay level. I want them to be well, healthy, and financially. I don't want them having to worry about coming to work if they are not feeling well because they're worried about their paycheck. We do owe that to our employees to make sure they're treated with utmost respect, that we take care of them in this situation.
Perfect. Anything else?
So we would want the motion to approve this to include Mr. Wirch's clarifications across the board. Lori, do you have those?
Yep, both of them.
Thank you.
And the Family First Act? How are we
We're
gonna get,
working on that already, yep.
yeah, because that's 2 weeks, I mean, that's 80 hours.
Yep.
So that could cover their 14 days.
John second.
Don?
John
No
second.
objection. Oh,
Oh, I second,
yeah.
yes.
Do you have any objection to incorporating Mr. Wirch's?
No, that'd be fine.
Charlie, good?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Next, we have a resolution writing off certain uncollectible water and sewer accounts. Staff note, periodically staff brings forth certain sewer, water, and accounts deemed uncollectible by city staff and city attorney. Staff recommends approval of the attached resolution writing off 2 accounts in the amount of $859.19. Any questions or discussion on this item?
Move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Raleigh, second by Doug. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have consider bid paving. Staff note bid opening was on Friday, March 20th for the resurfacing of multiple streets. The bid results are distributed at tonight's meeting. Any questions or discussion on any of the streets in the bid packet? Any questions or discussion?
Move to approve the low bid from Northeast Asphalt, $483,692.
Second.
Motion by Al, second by Raleigh. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Gary, just seeing previous issues, make sure enough notice gets out to all these residents for when it's going to happen in their neighborhood. Thank you.
MSA, actually, you'll be sending that stuff out, Mike, or?
I have to work with them on.
Okay, okay. Good catch, thank you. Okay, item number 6 is being a columbarium. Staff note, at their January 14th meeting, the council directed the Public Works Committee to continue looking into a columbarium and feasibility for the city of Ripon. The Public Works Committee has been doing research, and at their March 12th meeting recommended accepting a proposal from Divine Passage Funeral Home authorizing up to $4,000 to start the concrete prep work and starting the project after enough money has been raised for the down payment through fees and donations. Questions or discussion on this item? Anything at all? John?
I had a question on that project proposal for the columbarium. It says in the second paragraph, I guess I call it, price does not include concrete foundation. Concrete should be 4 feet thick under columbarium. Is that just, does that mean a 4-foot deep footing or 4 feet deep?
4 feet of cement.
Okay,
All
and then the
way
footing
down.
below that, yes.
No footing,
Just
just dig the
4 feet.
hole, 4 feet in there,
Okay,
frame it out and draw it off and then put the columbarium on top.
okay,
That's to hold it in place.
yeah,
Got to be below the frost line.
yes.
A lot of
That's a
concrete.
lot of concrete.
It's like 3 yards.
Good, John?
Yes.
Jim? No? Yeah?
Well, I read in our contract that it said only 1 human cremated remains per niche. I thought when we first talked about this, you could be put in together.
Ooh, is what we talked about, I thought.
I thought we had talked about that as part of the,
I didn't think there was a limit.
Yes.
this,
I didn't see that.
the number 1 bullet point on page 2 talked about that. I seem to recall that, Howie, right? There was talk of husband, wife,
Exactly.
you know, two urns in one
Two
spot,
urns
if
in
you
one.
will.
I guess I envisioned, Jim, that 2 would be side by side on there. I don't remember if we talked about putting 2 in
Yeah, I think we did.
or not.
Yeah.
I think we did.
did.
I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
No, no, you're
Yeah, no,
right.
we
You're
did.
right.
Because there's a lot of other cities that have it where 2 go in the same niche.
Yeah,
Vaults, I mean, stacking, I mean, there's a bunch of different things now.
That's why I put this in there, so we can make sure we get it right. I guess the question would be, would we charge, how would we charge that? Would be my question.
You would charge for the niche and then turn
And
around and the plating. Additional
On the
charge.
opening and closing, because that's what we
Yeah.
discussed at the last one, because you said you're gonna have a key for the opening and
Can you
closing.
look at, let's look at the plating that's on here, that is, we want. Try to find that. I'm not sure that,
The discussion was a maximum of 2.
Right.
Okay,
the plating does come into play.
Yeah.
Because there's not very much room on the plating.
Yep.
And then taking the plating off and adding to it upon the unfortunate demise of the partner. There are some issues with that, correct, Mike?
That is correct, and we wanted to standardize. to
Which is
this
why
format.
the one niche
What you're seeing this evening.
seemed to fit versus the two.
Do we allow two for in-ground in one plot,
So
two cremations?
we allow one vault and one cremation. Or two cremations.
Yes, okay.
So why would we want to change from that policy? I'm just throwing that out there.
Doug?
I think, as I recall from the last DPW committee meeting, that it was partly or mostly because of the plating of the lettering. You just can't put two names on it. It's just not big enough. So having one cremains, sure, I guess, but it's going to be difficult to re-letter it, or,
I've been to a columbarium down in Milwaukee for a friend that's Russian Orthodox, and they have two on each niche. So, you know, maybe we need to explore that a little bit more to find out what can really be offered.
all right, I mean, that sounds fine to me. I've never seen one like that, but,
We just went through this with the church. We have 24 spots. Each, you can either buy them as a couple or you could buy a single. And the lettering, when the individual dies, you have both names on there, but when the individual dies, there's a separate small little plate with the date on it that they screw onto the front. So you can get two on that 12 by 12 or 14 by 14 plaque.
Can I, and then the cost, do you know what the cost of those are running then for one or two people?
I-
then? Do you remember?
Actually, I don't have those numbers with me. I thought I had my church stuff with me, but I don't.
Right, Cross won't be added.
I think my recommendation would be that we just leave this for the next meeting. We'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Let's
and we
table it
can-
for next meeting. We're actually in the resolution was specifically for Divine Passage Funeral Home and authorizing the $4,000. That's what you're looking for this evening?
Yep, and then if you want to make a motion, I guess, to have me investigate the two-person in there?
Yeah, well, that will be the understanding by tabling. A motion to table rather be an order, so.
Motion to bring back at the next meeting.
Yep, yeah, table and bring back to the next meeting. Table
Table, then we
till-
have to motion to take it off the table again. Let's
Okay, let's just move it to the next
move-
meeting. I like that,
yeah, Move it to the next meeting.
to get that clarification. The clarification, we'll
Yeah.
move the thing, you can't get into the ground anyways for the,
Right.
or you weren't intending, were you?
It depends when the cement guy's coming in,
Okay.
as it'll,
It would be before, what's our next
We'll
meeting?
be back here in 22 days. I mean, I think,
I mean, if you
Might be
want
good
that,
on
Mike,
that.
they can vote on that separately.
we'll figure it out.
Okay,
Move it out.
okay,
I see, we could do the
we could do the cement.
cement
I-
piece. But, I mean,
That's up
it's,
to the common council.
yeah, I mean, if we know, if you know you guys want to do this for sure and we're moving forward, then yeah, I mean, you could move forward with the spending up to the 4,000, at least get that part in, and we can bring back the rest, the design of the columbarium itself at the next meeting with some clarification. Then you could start talking to contractors and getting that lined up if,
But the 4,000 was always intended to be a city cost only. Yes, no, maybe, or is that part of the
That was included into the
proposal
cost
from Divine
of the
Passage?
columbarium. No, that would be a city cost, and we would pull that out of the cemetery funds
Okay,
as those became available.
and then the
unless I did-
design was for Divine Passage Funeral. So we could approve the 4,000 separately this evening?
I don't think it'll be that much. I think it'll be a lot less than
up
that.
to, okay.
But
but we could approve moving
could
forward
approve
with
that to let
the
me go forward
foundation.
and get that foundation. If there's intention of moving forward with the whole project.
Al?
I would move that we allocate up to $4,000 to Department of Public Works to construct the foundation, the concrete foundation for the columbarium,
To bring back
and
clarification.
to bring back
Clarification on the rest.
clarification on the rules and agreement to the next council meeting.
Perfect. I have a motion by Al Schrader. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Howie Hansen. I'm just stating that, you guys, so our clerk understands who's making motions and stuff, so hopefully I didn't miss any yet. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution initiating the proposed discontinuance of Aiken Street. Staff note, on the March 10th council meeting, the council directed the item be sent to the Plan Commission for review and recommendation and returned to the council for final action. The Plan Commission reviewed on March 18th and determined Aiken Street is no longer necessary to maintain as a street and recommends vacation and discontinuance of the right-of-way known as Aiken Street. Questions or discussion on this? Anything at all?
Move to approve.
Motion by Al,
Second.
second by Jim. Any further questions or discussion?
Starts the clock, Lud, correct?
Yeah, all we're doing is starting the process, the public hearing has to be held. So the resolution calls for that to move forward, which is in the packet somewhere. I'm certain, right?
Yeah, it
okay.
is. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries with everybody in favor, other than John Split abstaining. Thank you.
So a public hearing will be held at a date not less than 40 days from today, and a list pendants will be filed with the Register of Deeds.
Okay. Moving on, item number 8, we have comprehensive plan update. On the March 18th, the Plan Commission met with MSA's senior project planner regarding the required 10-year update to the city's comprehensive plan. Plan Commission recommends a simplified process for the required update to the comprehensive plan at a cost of approximately $15,000 to be funded from contingency, which currently has a balance of $30,000. The other option, Lori, was, I believe, $24,000 for
Yeah, it was between 20 and 25,000 for a full,
full-blown plan,
Traditional
more
plan.
in-depth, traditional. Okay, and the last one was in '08, I believe,
correct?
so we're a little bit overdue, and this is something we have to do, state statutes.
Correct.
Okay? Any questions or discussion on this? Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive plan update, spending the $15,000 from contingency on it.
Motion by Mr. Iverson,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Split. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Last action item this evening, item number 9 is going to be Tigert Street Stream Crossing. At the February 11th council meeting, the council approved moving forward with using the Tigert Street Stream Crossing as a pedestrian crossing, not removing the road to the crossing, having the area reviewed by MSA for parking and safety, receive a formal drawing from MSA, and a fee not to exceed $1,000, and to bring back the council for formal approval. The drawing from MSA as well as the cost estimate are attached for council's review. Was in your packet this evening. So, I mean, when I just read that, it says not to remove the road, but at the last meeting, if you all remember, we talked about shrinking the road to a walkway. So that is still the intent, I believe, right?
Yes, that's,
Yeah, are we?
from talking with Park and Rec members, that's what we would like to see.
Okay. And did you meet since our last meeting, Howie, with Park and Rec?
We did not,
Okay.
but we had discussed it prior to our last meeting.
Anything, John?
Yeah, I personally prefer the concept two. It stops the semi-trailer traffic from cutting through there. My one question is the bollards yet that are still gonna be used, why can't we just use rock or, boulders instead of a permanent concrete bollard? They're still,
We're in the middle there.
we're in the middle, yes.
We can do it. That's what they came up with
Yeah.
for that particular piece.
I'm just thinking if you need to access the bridge at some time, you could at least move the rock, you can drive on there.
Right. And it keeps it a more natural look.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the concept too, John,
That's me personally.
let me explain a little bit on here, is that is our property that goes through there according to GIS. I did pass this along to Condon's, to Carla Block, to bring forward to, I think they had a meeting, I did reach out to her today, and she hadn't got back to me on any of that. There's still some discussion, because the semis, I don't know if they need to go through there. I've heard that they don't, they go out the other way. I've heard they would prefer it blocked off, but this is all stuff that I've heard. But I have no other information from Condon's at this point.
So the boulders and bollards, the boulders are $50 cheaper than the bollard anyways.
Correct.
We put boulders in, is how we mentioned, keep it look more natural, it'd be cheaper.
And it really depends what kind you want there. Something that can be gone over later.
Host filled with concrete.
Yep.
Good, Jim?
I just don't want to spend $5,000 on a couple boulders to block off. To me, it's for a temporary Band-Aid to something we're still working on as an overall park project. I just don't want to spend the $5,000 personally with the budget the way it is and things like that.
Well, just my 2 cents. I mean, I don't necessarily know if it's temporary and it's a Band-Aid. I mean, I mentioned at the last meeting that if
Well,
the
there's
TID,
never been a comprehensive plan for Aiken Park that said this is what we're going to do in its entirety.
no, right, exactly. But we talked about at the last meeting, there's not enough funds in the TID that is amended the project plan to replace this bridge and the Jackson one. And so the Jackson one is what we're focused on, and this might be this way forever. It might be this way for 8 years. If funding is available and whatever future council and elected body wants to change it, and there's money available, they can. But I don't see this changing from what's in front of you this evening anytime in the near future, so. Good, Jim?
Yeah.
John, I got Howie over here first, and I'll come back to John.
I agree with John on the concept too. Years ago, when we were developing our city bicycling path, we had looked at wanting to route down through that area on the city-owned land through that Condon area. And since that point in time, they've really infringed upon that section with their trucks and with personnel parking. So this would at least form a boundary of where the city property is versus the Condon property. And I think we can, even if they are looking to get in and out that way, there might be something that can be done to, work with the neighbors to keep that viable for both ways.
Good, Howie?
Yep.
I got John, then I'll come back to Al. John?
The boulder price, getting to what Jim said, I think the boulder price is high. Where did you get your?
Could be, I just got one price, John.
Okay,
We can
did you get it,
price that out from wherever, it depends on the size.
who was it from?
4 or 5 footers,
Yeah,
Who was it from?
hard heads, Kinesis,
Enos, okay.
yep, so,
Just suggest that we,
set in stone.
right, we check with,
Fun, get it?
Oh, my.
yeah. You got it a little slower.
Ouch.
I would just like to suggest you go to R&R Wash. I called them today. They told me you didn't contact them yet. Their boulders are $22 a ton. So it's,
It depends on the size.
yeah, so if you could, please, keep it as local as you can.
Yeah.
That's good.
John, good?
Yep.
Al?
I'm not comfortable in voting this in until we hear from Condons. They're a strong community partner. They do a lot of good things in this community. And, I'd like to that they have a time, get back to Mike. I don't want to, I think we've got to be good partners in this.
Yep, no, that's fine. Mr. Wirtz, and then I'll have Mr. Hanson.
I apologize if I use the word Band-Aid. I'd use cosmetic more than anything. I apologize if that's
No, it's fine.
long-term,
I just don't want the public thinking this is,
To the point of the boulders too, is we obviously have other projects going on. I mean, city crew, if the possibility for the payloader to take the rock from one place in town to the other versus paying money for rock. I mean, we're gonna, these other things that we just talked about, Vermont Street, I mean, we're gonna be digging in there, potentially up in Murray Park, digging a hole. Possibly if this is something we can wait and do at internal costs versus actually purchasing. I don't believe in spending that money right now. And I believe wholeheartedly with that, like Al said too, we gotta make sure neighborly relations with everything we do.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
oh, Howie?
Yeah. Just
Yes,
how we
go
sitting
ahead.
over here. I agree with Jim. We've sat with this for many years. Rushing after it right now is not the purpose of this. This was, I think, was more of just an informative thing for us. And I agree with Al. Let's see what Condons has to say, work with them, because like I say, we have to be good neighbors, and then we can proceed, when the time is right.
Okay, anything else? We'll do some more homework and we'll bring this back at a future meeting.
I guess, guess there's one more thing. There isn't a problem with, the fire department needing to use that easement or using that drive to get back, or I'd check with
Department heads.
department heads to see if that's fine as well. I don't know if this has been passed through with them or not for review, but
And essentially, we're talking about narrowing a street as part of this? That's what we're doing? Right now, it's closed temporarily. There's barricades on both sides, correct? So part of this whole project is also narrowing that street,
A walkway.
the walkway. That's a separate action the council has to take
mean-
on narrowing a street.
We would have to abandon the street anyway before we could proceed on anything.
Well, we're not
Or
abandoning.
the-
necessarily.
Well,
Abandon. We'd narrow-
if we're going to narrow it,
Yep, that's
it
an
would no
action.
longer be
Street,
a navigable street.
Right.
So then, if we're gonna go that way, then we would have to look at
yep.
abandoning it. But until then, we leave it that width and.
We talked about that last meeting. We'd want to narrow it, just like the street on the other side of this building
We're
that
not
was
giving
built
any-
over.
Right.
Because if 15 years from now or 8 years from now, the city council decides to put a new bridge in there in the street,
We're gonna have to repave it anyway.
right, so
We'd still have the land.
we still have the land, we still have the right of way. It's just a narrowed, Lud mentioned that at the last meeting, legally
Yep, we
narrowing
would-
it would be the
So it'd be an
direction.
action to narrow it. So we need to do that hand in glove. These boulders, I guess, would prevent conflict outside of this area, correct? Am I reading the map correctly? It's not in the street.
No, it's the
adjacent
edging.
there, too. The edging, okay. So I think we need to bring it back at a later date. I think that is the appropriate motion.
Yep,
So move.
Second.
any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Al and me.
Al made the motion and Howie seconded it. I'm sorry, last one and I dropped the ball, huh? And motion carried unanimous, Ann. Project updates and staff reports. Lori?
We have 3 employees celebrating anniversaries in the month of March. We have our Captain Troy, 10 years, he was here. And then our Senior Center Director Noreen Johnson, 2 years. And Mark Weisky from Public Works Department, 28 years.
Oh. Awesome. Mike, is there anything, the bids, or we just that?
Grinding of sidewalks has started
It has started already?
today. but they'll probably have to leave the city at some point here and then return. So that was started, and that's about it, trying to keep stuff going.
Raleigh?
Is there going to be a spring leaf pickup?
No,
Just curious.
Yep.
So property owners are responsible for taking everything out to the,
that's correct.
Closed.
Closed for 2 weeks.
Yep, so it's closed for 2 weeks at a minimum. We don't know what'll happen at that point. I did talk to somebody today about placing sticks on the curb. With that being closed, no issues with that. If residents want to do that, then we'll come back around and get those second week of, what the heck? April. For that, so we've never picked up leaves in the spring.
I'm just asking because we had such a mess this last fall into winter, and I drive down the road and I can still see there's huge piles of
The
leaves.
sweeper should start coming out here late this week or early next week and get the stuff in the curb line from that standpoint.
You know what's gonna happen.
Just, given the uncertainty of where we were, we decided to close the compost for 2 weeks right now. We can reevaluate that at any time. I expect the weather's gonna get a little bit nicer. People are home, they're gonna wanna clean stuff up. We potentially could maybe open it up on a Tuesday like we do when we're picking up leaves in the fall, where maybe we don't necessarily, if our employee isn't comfortable being out there, or he's out there, we can have him inside and maybe a box of drop-off tickets so he doesn't have to have interaction with people. Or it can just be open and you can drive in, dump stuff off, and we'll maybe close it when the guys are done at 3. But we'll look at that and talk about that at staff in the near future here, and maybe,
It's probably not gonna happen after tomorrow's announcement, so.
yeah, I mean, if nobody's going anyplace, that's why we closed it for now, because if things changing daily. And so we'll reevaluate that as soon as we can, and we know what's going on and what the public can do.
I would
So,
say if you guys want me to pick them up, we will put everything back on the truck and go around. But otherwise, we haven't done that, is my understanding.
I think it would be almost impossible to do it. They're so wet and, yeah.
You have to give enough notice to make sure they're at least out.
John?
You answered my question already on the street sweeper. You
Yep.
said next week.
Yeah, there's some repairs to it being done. And the part they tried to put on didn't fit. So they're doing some retrofitting to that. And then we should be able to see that. I think I had it scheduled for April 1st.
Anything else? Thanks, Mike. Mayor communication and appointments, I have both this evening. First, we'll take some appointments. I'd like to make the following appointments subject to council approval. Historic Preservation Commission, Billy Hutton, appointment for a 3-year term ending on October 31st, 2023.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Raleigh, second by Howie. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Bid Board, we have 2 appointments this evening. The first one being Jen Rintelman, appointment for a 3-year term ending on 12/31/2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Raleigh. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next for the Bid Board is Sarah Willett, appointment for a remainder of a 3-year term ending on 12/31/2021, filling a vacant seat. Any questions or discussion on this one?
Motion to approve.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Al. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Again, I just want to thank the council this evening. I know difficult time that we're in right now. Just a couple other notes to pass along. The County Finance Committee will be meeting tomorrow, discussing the potential of, call it a micro loan for small businesses within Fond du Lac County, with quite a few months and a very low interest rate. I don't really want to say right now. I want the Finance Committee to hash out what they're going to look at tomorrow. As soon as they have information on that, we'll probably get that on our website. So if there's any small businesses in our community that are affected by the situation we're in right now, they can get their name on a list and apply for that, but it'd be a few $1,000s. They don't have a number yet, but it'd help out any small business in our county and our community. Howie?
Do you get that information? If you could link that to the Chamber of Commerce also, that might be
Yeah.
a
As soon as
good
I
second source,
know and
once
we
you
get
have that
that,
all.
yep, we'll put it on our website, we'll get it to Chamber, we'll get it to Main Street, we'll get it to anybody that's been in our email address and just, what's that, Jim?
All of us.
Yep, we'll get it to you guys, so you know, and you can, people you're talking to and stuff. It's a very difficult time out there, and people are nervous and worried about where they're going and what's happening, and, you know, Evers is gonna announce tomorrow what businesses can be open or can't be open, essential, non-essential. And there again, things are changing, as Lud mentioned earlier, you know, the state is doing stuff, the federal is doing stuff, with regards to what we can do and can't do. You know, from the city standpoint, I'm just gonna mention that, you know, we'll do what we can. Our services here are police, fire, EMS, sewer, water, garbage. We'll do everything we can to maintain order in the community and take care of the residents that we can. I can't stress enough that, you know, Mr. Iverson mentioned earlier about, you know, resident looking to put a group together. If anybody ever, not just now in the situation, but, you know, especially now, needs anything, just contact the city, contact your alderman, contact me. We'll get you in touch. If you need something, ADRC, you need senior center, you need veteran services, you need health department, whatever you need. We are currently updating our website with anything we get from the county, Lori.
Correct.
So any updates or anything we get, we're putting on our website. I know Chief has put some stuff on Facebook. We'll do anything we can, but if there's something the city of Ripon can't do, I want our residents to call us, call you guys. We'll find a number, we'll find somebody to contact, whoever needs something out in our community. So by all means, reach out, and you know what I say is all you can do is ask, and all you can say is no, but I don't want to do that. We want to connect people. And if they can't, I know the people that we'll be contacting if they need to. If they can't help you, they'll direct you someplace else. So in this time of need, if anybody needs anything, all it is just take a phone call, and we'll try to do what we can to connect you if it's something we can't take care of in the city of Ripon here. The election will be before our next council meeting. As of right now, today, it's still on. I haven't seen or heard anything. I was watching a conference call this afternoon with Evers, and it is still on. However, if something changes before now and the election, and they postpone it or move it or whatever, they're pretty content on moving forward and having the election. The city of Ripon has an idea and a plan and a process to move forward. If that would happen, we will talk to you at our next meeting about it, because our next meeting is 22 days, which will be the week after the election. Because all of our terms currently end on the 21st. And that would mean you have 3 council representatives in this room, and the government can't function with 3 representatives. So we've talked internally at staff about that, and talked to our clerk about it. So we have to do what we need to do for the city of Ripon, regardless of what they do with the election. So as of right now, I don't want anybody to panic or get nervous. It is still on. I think they're going to probably keep it on, just to give you a heads up that we're working on a plan and a process to make sure the city of Ripon has representation and they can function and operate if it would get postponed. Anything to add to that, Lud?
No, I think that's an accurate statement, and again, as of this date and time, the election is still on.
Still on, correct. I think that's all I have for this evening. Any other agenda items other than what we discussed this evening?
Did you want me to mention the dates for voting? Last deadline?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. There's been some, not just confusion, but changes that happened with the election and voting and so forth. So our clerk has got a little list of things for the dates and people, what they, and there again, the state is urging and will urging people to vote absentee ballot. I think we're about 25% of what we normally have in a major election of people that have already voted absentee. Lori, go ahead.
Yep, our clerk has had 629 absentee ballots issued, and our last presidential primary was about 2,649 voters, so already almost 25% of our community has voted. The deadline to register to vote has been extended, and that is until March 30th. The last day to request an absentee ballot is April 2nd, And then the last day to vote in person in our office, absentee, is April 3rd. And we do need poll workers, so if anyone is interested in, and that is a paid position, so if anyone is interested, please contact us.
And those dates are currently where we are at today with our process. If the state could change something and change those dates again and allow something different, and we'll let the public know what that is. We'll put that on our website again, Lori, right?
Correct.
So just stay tuned, and we'll do everything we can to get the information out there. Al?
What is our next meeting date?
April 14th.
Is that our reorganizational meeting?
No. The election is the 7th, your regular council meeting is the 14th, reorganizational is the 21st. So it's 3 Tuesdays in a row. First one's election,
Right.
second, your regular meeting, third, which is when we'll do normal business. And then third, if the election is the way it happens normally, will be a reorganizational meeting, because we have a certain date and timeline that
Very
we
good.
have to do the reorganizational meeting. Good question.
Just one clarification.
Yep. Good, Lori?
Good.
Okay, nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Raleigh, second by Doug. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Everybody be safe.
Lori, where's our recycle pile?